Video number 2 for review is our photosynthesis video. And this one is going to be the longest one because out of the 50 questions on your test, 20 of them come from photosynthesis. So before we get started on this, I'm going to make this chart that we've seen. Remember, photosynthesis was comprised of 2 different reactions. We had photoreactions and then we had synthesis reactions. And you should be able to recognize what happens in each one of them. Our overall equation for photosynthesis is that CO2 plus water plus light produces sugar and oxygen. You should have this equation memorized. You should know all about it. And then we're going to see what happens here. So in our photoreactions, water is broken down into electrons, into oxygen, and into hydrogen ions. So we've got our water used here in our photoreactions. And then these photoreactions have to happen in the presence of light, which gets absorbed by chlorophyll, the pigment. Chlorophyll. So we've got our light there. And then where does this happen if we've got light being absorbed by the chlorophyll? It occurs in the thylakoid of the chloroplast. And then I forgot this one. It produces oxygen here with this breakdown of water. So let me skip to this picture that we looked at in class. So we've got our light energy here. We've got our chlorophyll. These are our chlorophylls, and we had 2 of them. And we've got our water in here inside the thylakoid breaking down into hydrogens, electrons, and oxygens. And we said this oxygen is a product, so it's going to be released from the cell. But our electrons are going to go down the electron transport chain. That's our ETC, or electron transport chain. And our hydrogen ions are going to be used to make this proton gradient that's responsible for making ATP. So we're going to go back to our list and write that down. So our electrons go down the electron transport chain. And as they move down that chain, they lose energy. O2 is released as waste product, and H pluses make a proton gradient to eventually make ATP. All right, let's check. I'm just reading through the list of what's on the test to make sure I have it all. Oh, I missed something here. Back here in this picture, we had these photosystems, and our first photosystem was the water splitting photosystem. And so chlorophyll absorbs light, uses the energy from the light to split the water into its parts. Then those electrons lose energy as they go along, so they need to pick up some more energy, or they need to be re-excited. So they go to our next photosystem, and our next photosystem makes NADPH. So this is all in the photo part. Electrons, I should say it this way. Photosystem, the first one, water is broken apart. And then in the second one, NADPH is made. All right, now on to our synthesis reactions. In our synthesis reactions, we are taking CO2 from the atmosphere and fixing it into an organic molecule. And that organic molecule is sugar. So we've got CO2 and sugar. Happens here in this process. The name of this process is the Calvin cycle. And it happens in the stroma of the chloroplast. It has 3 steps. Our first step is carbon fixation, which uses an enzyme called rubisco, which is the most abundant enzyme on Earth. Our second step is our sugar production. And then our third step is our regeneration. And we didn't talk much about that, and there's nothing on your test about regeneration, but so you see those 3 steps. Let's see. How does the carbon dioxide, which is a gas, and the oxygen, which is a gas, how do those things move in and out of cells? So the gas exchange, moving CO2 in and O2 out, happens in stomata. Make sure that we talk about the thylakoid and the stroma, that you recognize a picture of it. So here's our picture of the chloroplast. So we've got this sac here is called the thylakoid, where all the space out here is called the stroma. So when we talk about the light reactions or the photo reactions and where they occur in the thylakoid, which is the sac. This part over here, our synthesis reaction, is responsible for growth of the plant. So that CO2 is the source of growth. So the CO2 to sugar, that's what we're talking about. That's why that one's responsible for the growth of the plant. We talked about chlorophyll over here on this side in our photo reactions. Chlorophyll is responsible for absorbing light, but we also talked about some other pigments, our accessory pigments. And those were like our carotenoids and such, and they were responsible for absorbing other wavelengths of light. Our chlorophyll was green because it absorbs every color but green. Our carotenoids could be reds and yellows, so they absorb every color but the reds and the yellows, so they can get all the other light that the chlorophyll can't absorb. All right, then our last thing I think that we're going to add to our list is ATP and NADPH. So the photo reactions make ATP and NADPH. We saw that up here. The H pluses were used to make ATP, and our photosystem two, our second photosystem was used to make NADPH. And then these reactions in the synthesis size use ATP and NADPH. All right, last thing for us to look at on our photosynthesis notes is to look at our C3, C4, and CAM photosynthesis. So in dry environments, in warm environments, plants have to worry about water loss through those stomata. When the stomata are open, it allows for gas exchange. It also allows for the evaporation of water. So in warm climates, plants could use either C4 or CAM photosynthesis, where it closes those stomata either slightly or all the way so it can hold on to water for longer. In our CAM photosynthesis, we specifically read about their stomata being open only at night. They're closed during the day. And our C4 is another way. They are just slightly opened, but either way, it's to reduce water loss. Going through my list and making sure we got everything. Okay, I did miss one thing. When we talk about our leaves changing color in the fall, and those accessory pigments, carotenoids absorb other wavelengths of light. So in the fall, when we see those carotenoids, when the leaves turn reds and yellows and oranges, remember we talked about the angle of the sun being different, so there was less light to be absorbed and the plant doesn't use that energy. It stops making chlorophyll, and then our other pigments are able to be seen. Our carotenoids and such are able to be seen. All right, if you have this chart here, this is the majority of what you need to know for your test. But remember, the questions on the test ask lots of things with lots of other words of things that you haven't seen, and you just have to pay attention to the parts that you know or the words that you know. The photoreactions occur in the thylakoid. The Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma. If it gives you a whole bunch of other words, ignore them and pick out the important parts, and try to find what the question is really asking you. But this is the majority of what you need to know for our photosynthesis section of the test.